It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, April 17th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that can't believe how far and how little we've come since game one of the Philadelphia Flyers season.
It's confusing and true.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, soon to be 20, I guess. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are going to look at our Flyers Team Award predictions versus the actual ones a little later in the show, as well as look at draft eligible prospect defenseman Jackson Smith. Excited to get to talk about him. Tonight is game 82 of the Philadelphia Flyers 2024-25 season. And, we know what the implications are for the draft. We're looking at the 6th spot versus the 7th spot in the draft lottery between these two teams based on where the points are. Everyone else is locked in above at this point, and then below us, Pittsburgh has more regulation wins than the Flyers do, so they're kind of locked in below the Flyers and Sabres.
Right.
So that's kind of where we're at, and that's the last thing to determine in this Flyers season there. And so does it make a big difference? Probably not. Would it be helpful to maybe lose the game? Sure, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would. And I think the Sabres are going to really go full bore to try and win this last game, to try and almost snooker their fans that we're going to be better for next year, even though they've got loads of problems. But I think that's what they're going to, the game plan is for them.
Well, that's what they've been doing for the past month or so, and it's been very clear. So thought it'd be interesting, though, to look at the lines that we had at game one of the season versus what we just saw against Columbus the other night as kind of a predictor. I'm doubting they're going to change anything.
Right.
Except for getting Devin Kaplan in. That'll be the big difference. And I'm sure, maybe he'll slot in for Delorier. That's the hope, but we'll see.
Yeah, that would be the easy thing to do.
Right. So I think, other than that change from the Columbus game, I think we're looking at pretty similar lines there. Now, the most interesting aspect of game one versus, game 82 here that we're looking at is we have this same Couturier line with Matvei Michkov and Travis Konechny. So we've come full circle on that, where it started out like, oh, this is probably the right idea. And it was the top line, though, at the beginning of the season. And now it's the second line because we've now developed this Cates line over the course of the season. But we kind of broke that Couturier line apart, sent them in separate areas, separate lines, and now we've come back to it. That's pretty interesting.
It is. That's interesting for sure. And I mean, you could at least say, all right, they've created a couple of lines, but I think only one of them is really set in stone, to be honest.
Right. And that is the Cates line that we're looking at. Now, what's fascinating is that in game one, Noah Cates did not play. He was a scratch in that game. Now, if you recall, that game one was against Vancouver, and it was a back-to-back with Calgary. And so Cates did check into game two against Calgary there. And I think that was a pre-planned thing that John Tortorella had decided to do at that point. So I'm going to, put a little asterisk next to that decision. But that being said, what a remarkable trajectory for Noah Cates, going from, I don't know, is he even going to crack the lineup? To now he's basically our number one center by default at the end of the season.
Yeah. I mean, he's had a nice season. You're not going to get that much more offense out of him, but everything else is really good in his game.
Yeah. Now, the other kind of interesting thing, obviously, we know all the big trades that happened over the course of the season, but the next two centers below Sean Couturier for game one were Morgan Frost and Jet Luchenko. And I just find that incredible to then compare to, okay, now we have Sean Couturier as your 2C, and then Ryan Poehling, who was your 4C to start the season, is now the 3C, which, given everything, that part of it checks out. But the fact that we actually started out with Jet Luchenko as the 3C at the NHL, wild, wild stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it still shows this gap that they have down the middle, but they've shuffled deck chairs and they tried the kid out, and even if you put him in there today, he's not ready. So just the way it is.
Yeah. Now, the second line that we started off with was Owen Tippett with Morgan Frost at center and then Tyson Forster on the other wing. And I think that line started out with the best of intentions.
It
And
did.
like when you're thinking about what you thought Owen Tippett's season would look like, that actually seems like a really good combination with Frost kind of holding down the fort. And I think in that scenario, you would think that Tyson Forster would have been able to shoot a lot more because Owen Tippett would either pass it or take that first shot. It would careen off
Yeah.
somewhere, and then Forster would get the opportunity because he's the guy that would have dug the puck out anyway, right? So it does make a certain degree of sense. And now none of the first of all, for us gone, but Tippett and Forster are not on the same line. And Forster has found success on that Kate's line with a much improved Bobby Brink. And then Tippett is just kind of there on the third line. Whereas I feel like that line is more stable now with Ryan Poehling and Jacob Peltier.
Yeah, I think so. I won't say much improved on Brink. I'll say marginally improved. There's still some big holes in his game, and I don't know. I mean, is he ever going to be a 50-point guy? If he's not, I don't know if you could sign him like to a long-term deal. Like that's where I'm at right now with Bobby Brink. It may change next year, but right now that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm a little higher on him, and I think the chemistry he has with Noah Cates and Tyson Forster, I think elevates his game a lot. Now, at this point, seeing him on a different line, if he goes way down in skill and production, that is the alarm bell for me. But we'll see what happens down the road and see what other personnel develop. And there's definitely room for him to
I mean,
go
11
at some
goals is
point.
just, for me, it's unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great, but this team is not great.
No,
So
I get it, but
it's all relative.
yeah,
you know?
it's partially relative. Some of it you have to kind of figure out on your own too.
Yeah. And then of course we have, Scott Lawton is no
Hmm.
longer on the team. So that's why we've had Delorier on that fourth line. And we had the Carson Dorwarts signing
Right.
since then. And so things are definitely changing, but
They are.
the fact that Hathaway's still there on the fourth line, right wing, I mean, that's consistent. And I think he's a good kind of NHLer to have
Like
in that spot for
like
now.
he's, that's one of the rare situations where he would be a fourth liner on a lot of teams and a good one. So
Yeah.
that's fine. I mean, that is his role. Like that's fine. I'm fine with him.
Yeah. And then for the defensive pairings, we started off with York and Sanheim together, which is what we did for a huge bulk of the season. This
Yeah.
like switch to Sealer and Sanheim and York Drysdale is a
Right.
very recent thing.
Right.
So, there is that. Then game one, interestingly, Johnson played in
Yeah, they had to throw him in
and
there. That's fine.
and
Whatever.
and he played with Drysdale. Zamula was paired with Risto. Obviously, Risto's hurt, so we've
Right.
had Zamula and Andre on that last pairing here for a little bit, but they haven't really changed much recently. And all the changes they've made on the blue line, I think, have been circumstantial and not strategic, in my opinion.
I agree. No, I agree with that. There's still things that like York, even though he's a good defenseman, he needs to be better than just good, right? So he hasn't made that step. Sealer's fine. Sealer does his job and he does that part of his job well. Zamula is just kind of like he's okay. Zamula is just like your NHL average defenseman. I don't think he's much better than that. And Andre needs to somehow be a regular in the lineup. And then the elephant in the room is, if you want to tell me Jamie Drysdale looks marginally better, I'll say, okay, but it's very marginal. in his own end, and the offense is still not there. And
Yeah.
right now, with everything the way it's been under Brad, there's no reason his offense shouldn't have come alive, and it hasn't.
Right. That's been really interesting because I think, as we talked about on yesterday's show, the game of the Flyers hasn't necessarily elevated. We've had some offensive bursts over the term that Bradshaw's been behind the bench, but strategically and systematically, we haven't seen much change. And I would say there isn't much longevity in what Shaw has done over, these games at the end of the season.
Mhm.
And I think that's really interesting because other than, continuing this 5 forward power play thing, he hasn't done anything innovative or interesting.
No.
And, to be fair, he doesn't really have the personnel to do that, but
Right.
there are potentially some things he could have done. But, there's going to be an interview process coming up, which we're going to talk a lot about. And we're going to
Yep.
talk a lot more about a lot of these individual guys and what their future looks like as we head into the Flyers portion of the off season here. We will touch on the playoffs because they are in fact happening, even though we're
Oh,
not
yeah.
in it. So lots to dig into there. And the first thing is the Flyers Team Awards. We're going to look at what we thought they might be versus what happened with them. And we're going to do that coming up next.
The NHL playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, you can place your first $5 bet, and you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists in the NBA or goals and assists in the NHL, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the puck drop, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. I like the Colorado Avalanche here. I say stick with them for the moment. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
On tomorrow's show, we will, of course, recap Game 82 against the Buffalo Sabres. We'll know what the draft
We'll be
lottery
so smart then.
percentages are. I know. And then we're gonna kind of say now what, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot to that question, and so we're gonna start, putting together the framework for this off season for the Flyers because there is so much work to be done on this team. And we talked about the Flyers Team Awards on April 4th on our show that day and who might win them. And now we know, and so it'll be interesting to look at that. We were obviously, and I say obviously because who knows, but in terms of the Bobby Clark Trophy, that's for the MVP. We had said it was going to be Travis Konechny, and it was in fact Travis Konechny because I feel like there's really like no one else it could have been here, right?
I mean, you could make an argument because of Konechny's hot start and the way 3/4 of the season went that Michkov is now their best player. I mean, he's better
Yeah.
than Konechny right now. But the
Yeah.
points say Travis Konechny, so I understand.
This is where I made a tactical error because I was looking at that Toyota Cup
Yeah.
prize and I just said Travis Konechny because in my head I was like, oh, that's the most points. But
But
no,
there's a catch to it.
there's a catch because it's the who got named like a star of the game almost.
Right.
And that is Matvei Michkov. And we had a whole talk about like where are they going to fit Matvei
Right.
Michkov into these
And that
awards.
was
And
it.
lo and behold, the Toyota Cup is it. And God, I'm so glad there was something that he was like definitively the guy for because Matvei Michkov, in my opinion, basically saved this Flyer season from being like the ultimate tragedy to there's actually hope for the future.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely injected some hope for sure. It could have been like
Yeah.
what the team was under Mike Yeo. So, and it wasn't.
Well,
So.
oh
Well, I
my
mean, I'm just
God.
saying. I'm just
No, I know. You think it is funny because very recently, as we heard with Danny Briere, he said, hopefully this is rock bottom. And in my head, I was like, were you there? Because
that was kind of rock bottom.
that was kind of rock bottom in those days. In the post Vigneault doldrums.
Yes.
So, ugh. What a time. What a time. But I do, and again, these Flyers awards, sometimes it feels hard to celebrate this team given the circumstances, but you really do have to,
You do. I
right?
mean, the guys play hard. They deserve certain accolades. Yeah.
The Barry Ashby Award is for best defenseman, and it was Travis Sanheim last year. We assumed it would be Travis Sanheim again, and of course it was
I
because
mean, nobody really
Barry
challenged him, to be fair.
No, nobody did, and I think that's I think it speaks very highly of Travis Sanheim,
Hmm.
and I would say, of course, numbers-wise, the first half of his season was better,
Yes.
right? And, we've talked at length over the course of this season and last season about his ice time
Yeah.
and
Usage.
our his usage, and that it was way too high early in the season. They did manage to get it down and rejigger the pairings a little bit, but some of that was forced rejiggering again because of the
Yes.
Ristolainen injury. So I think that it, through a combination of circumstance and attempts at evening things out, they did bring his ice time down to a manageable level, but I think it was ultimately too late at that point because he
It
was pretty
was.
worn down, right?
Yeah. I mean, what Ristolainen kind of what he represents to me is like Peter Forsberg at the end, where it was like, well, everything will be
Yeah,
okay when Peter comes back. And then Peter just never stayed in the lineup and never came back for long enough. And that's kind of like what their defense is now with Risto. And it falls
yeah,
on
it's
Sanheim, like it falls on his shoulders.
yeah, and I think when you look at what Travis Sanheim has done, and obviously since Four Nations, he wasn't even supposed to really play in Four Nations
True.
every game. And they Team Canada had an injury, so Sanheim wound up playing all those games. And I think that took a lot out of him, and
Yeah.
it didn't allow him to heal, which I do not begrudge him that because they
No, it
deserved
was a
to win that
and he
tournament,
earned
and it was
that. Like he was
he
having
did.
that kind of year, and it was nice for him to be able to do that, especially knowing that the regular season here wasn't going great. So it was a
Yeah.
nice thing for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very happy for him for this year in his life, and I just hope that he gets the rest he needs in the off season there as well. We do know that Travis Sanheim also won the Yannick Dupre Class Guy Memorial Award, which I don't think we really thought about him for that one.
No, but
I
he
think,
is like easy to talk to, level-headed, uh,
yeah,
just kind of like in the middle. You don't never gets too high, too low. So I could see.
yeah, absolutely. We had thought maybe it would be Delorier or
Yeah, because
Risto or
he's
something like
he's
that.
he's just kind of like a good guy, like easy to talk to and such. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Wanna know the
interesting
most
because
amazing stat for Nick Delorier? Sorry. Somebody told me that this year he had something like 15 or 20 penalty minutes. That's it.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Toning it down a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
15 penalty minutes. That's
that's
crazy.
nuts.
He remember
That is nuts.
he was supposed to protect Matvei Michkov, and that never materialized.
Never happened. Never happened, but that's okay. We love you, Nick Delorier, as a human. You are a
Good guy.
class guy.
Yes.
Really good guy, and, it's just interesting. This guy comes this award tends to gravitate toward defensemen for some reason,
It
and
does.
I think there's a reason for it because defensemen are your protective people,
Yeah,
right?
they are. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. Now, going back to your comments in the first segment about Bobby Brink, he
Mhm.
did end up winning the Pelly Lindbergh trophy for most improved player. We had thought it might have been Noah Cates, and we also talked about Cates' trajectory from game 1
Right.
to game 82, and I think, I think we're both right.
Yeah,
I
I think
think
either one is
you
fine. I think
Mhm,
Cates is more though. I think
I
he
do.
was more of a factor. Like there were games there down the stretch where he was leading the charge. Brink had a couple of nice games where he did that, but he didn't do it enough in my estimation. Cates did it a lot more.
Right, and it's interesting because then Noah Cates gets the Gene Hart Award, which
Right.
is the fan club vote
Yeah.
for, the most heart, and one of the things we've talked about recently with Noah Cates is his not just the elevation of his game on the ice, but he has, like, taken a lot of the team scoring and motivation
Yeah.
on his shoulder. And we've talked about him as a potential candidate to get an A next season, which I think is very possible.
I do too.
Anything can happen, but very possible. And to me, this award kind of exemplifies that aspect of the elevation of him as a leader
For
and
sure.
as a strong presence on this team. And so, if he didn't win the most improved player award, this is the award I'm glad he got.
And I'm glad he did too. I mean, he deserves it. He put it out there every shift.
He really did. Now, the last award we have to talk about is the Alumni Community Leadership Award. And that award then becomes the King Clancy nominee for the league-wide level award. And, we were like, well, it's been Scott Lawton, and what do we do? Garnet Hathaway was the perfect choice for this. He does do a ton of work in the community, and you always see him in those publicity photos when they do visits. And I know he does a lot of work with first responders, which is an incredible cause. And so I think he is a very worthy successor to Scott Lawton on this front.
No doubt. And that's good. I mean, that's what the kind of guy he is.
Yeah. Now, I think moving forward, as far as the, on ice awards, in terms of most outstanding defenseman, improved, MVP, all that, I want some competition next year for these awards.
Yeah, there needs to be.
Right. I don't want there to be a de facto award. I want Michkov to get that MVP. I think if that's the goal for next season.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see if that comes to fruition. Check in with us in a year from now. We'll talk about it then.
300 and whatever days.
Yeah. We'll see when the schedule comes out. But we have the NHL draft to think about for the Flyers coming up. And defenseman Jackson Smith is really high up in the rankings. We're going to talk about him coming up next. Did you know that your Amazon Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller. You can subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you are ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed. It's as easy as you stream your favorite TV shows, and it's gaming made simple, all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from all your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. And you get affordable and portable gaming. You can play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of the console. But if you already have a console, add that Fire TV Stick 4K device. It makes it more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take you or your kids' favorite games wherever you can plug in. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. That's all one word to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. It's available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation. All right, Russ, the last couple of weeks when we've been doing our draft prospect profiles, I've been adding a Tankathon lottery simulator test here. Last time it took 2 tries. We're a little bit further down. It took 4 tries to get the first overall pick. Still not too shabby. I will take it. But of course, we only get 2 shots at the first or second overall pick in the actual lottery. We'll see how that goes. And just a reminder, all of these prospects that we are covering in our draft series are on a spreadsheet. There's a link to it in the show notes. You can go back and look at any of the guys we've covered so far leading up to the NHL draft. Jackson Smith is a left-handed defenseman. He's 6'3", 190, and this boy is 17 years old. He does not turn 18 until next month, so pretty huge for a 17-year-old, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and there's some nice things there. I mean, he's a really good skater. He's got a long reach. He's kind of like in that same boat that Sanheim was, where he's got this frame that it's
Mhm.
going to take him years to kind of, build on. But there's like good and bad in this game. The taking too many penalties, sure, you can cure that, to some degree. But that's something that worries me. The not overly physical part, he's like a stick guy. He breaks up a lot of plays stick wise. He'll
Right.
sometimes win those battles on the boards. He wins them with his stick. He just doesn't win a lot with his body at 6'3". So we'll see as he does that. Now, there's some other things, and then we'll get to the good stuff. He went from 4.8 shots earlier in the season to 5.4, but he's never going to get 5.4 shots a game as an NHL defenseman. And I do think he'll play in the NHL. So I think that that's something he's doing that because that's the way the team is. So then that skews the points a bit because now he's also up to from 21 minutes a game to over 23 and 23-37.
God, this
So
is I know. And the Travis Sanheim parallels are just they keep
they're all
coming.
there.
They
Yeah,
they're
they're
all
all there.
there. So he plays for the TriCity Americans in the WHL, just to show where his development path is. And he's had 11 goals and 43 assists for 54 points in a 68 game season. So again, very Travis Sanheim like, right?
Yes, like when you watch him, he is not really an overtly offensive defenseman. He will pinch when he has to. He'll step up and take that shot, which is a terrific shot, but he needs a lot of
Yep.
space to do it. All
Yep.
those things are we watch this kind of guy all the time.
Right. Now, it's so interesting to me because for a guy that's like Travis Sanheim, that style of defenseman for the is not really like the flashy kind of defenseman that people want to draft,
Correct.
even maybe in the 8 to 15 range in the first round. Like he's
Right.
a little that kind of style defenseman gets drafted a little lower in
Yes.
the first round these days. And the fact that this guy is ranked as high as 6 and his low is 15 is very surprising to me. And you had him ranked at 13. So like
Yeah.
why did you have him where you do in your ranking, versus maybe some of the other people that have ranked him higher?
Well, I was just on a meeting with elite prospects, and they're higher mostly on them than I am. Maybe it's because I watch this kind of defenseman all the time, and so it's
Mhm.
like if I'm a team, I sometimes put myself in that position. Like if I'm a team, I can't draft this guy in the top 10. I know he's going to play in the NHL, but like now I'm basically telling you I'm drafting a 3 or a 4 most likely in like the 6th or 7th spot. Like that doesn't bode well for my job over time. And I always act like I have this job to do. So I'm like, yeah, I would take him like in that next, after outside of the top 10, because yes, he could play defense. Yes, he could skate. Yeah, he could do all those things, but he's better defensively. Like his defensive zone starts are 56% compared to 25% in the offensive zone. I'm sure his offense will pick up over time, but these points, like I said, he's filling the gap for points. And when he goes and steps up
Right.
for a shot, a lot of times there's a lot of space. He's not going to have that kind of space over time when he starts changing leagues. So I kind of look at those things too. The projectables. I think people, because they raised his floor, are over projecting on the projectables.
Right.
So
And that's what's interesting to me because, when I have that initial thought about him being a Travis Sanheim like defenseman, sometimes your first thought is, well, we already have Travis Sanheim, but we have to replace Travis Sanheim at
yeah,
some point,
absolutely. Yeah,
right? Given Sanheim's age and the way, given this guy's age and development path, the timing is actually pretty good.
yeah,
I would say, to draft a guy like him. But I do share your concern about drafting him that high with our first round pick, even if
right.
that ends up, say, in the 7 or 8 slot. I still think that's too high
I do
to
too.
pick
I
him.
feel like let some
But
other team do that if that's really what they're going to
mhm,
do. And if you really do like him that much, if you feel like you can try and trade up and get him with the next pick you have, work out
yeah.
some sort of deal, maybe you can.
But I most certainly would not trade both of those additional firsts to move up for him.
No, I wouldn't either.
It would have to be a first and like a prospect or a much lower draft pick as
Yeah.
the other sweetener for
Yep.
me. But, I mean, he's doing okay in the playoffs, but in 5 games that I saw, a goal and 2 assists. Again, kind of continuing that
He is
same pattern.
younger, but again, the offense is what it is right now. It will get a
Yeah.
little better, but still, like, tendencies don't tend to change that much. You could change a guy to some degree. Like, I think Sanheim's a little more physical because he has some more bulk on him, but he's not overtly physical all the time. He will occasionally lay a big hit, but it's not like he's Chris Pronger, right? And so there's only so much you can kind of change on a guy's tendencies.
Right. And I think the other aspect is that when he does find offense, it's most often on the power play
Right.
because he needs the extra space
He does.
right now. And in order to have any real chances at getting clear shots, he needs the extra space of a power play.
Yeah, and the
So
other thing
I
that's
think
weird is he's an accurate passer, but sometimes on his first pass, he kind of rushes it, and it's not the greatest first pass, and sometimes it gets intercepted. Maybe that's the age thing. Maybe that'll get better.
yeah, I think so. So again, long runway, a
Yep.
lot of time to develop, get into his frame, maybe get more physical. There's a lot of potential here,
There is.
but he's not a guarantee. And that's kind of where I think it feels like both of our concern is.
Yeah, I think ultimately he will play in the NHL. I'm not sure as what, but I'm pretty sure he's not a top pairing guy. I'm sure of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is Jackson Smith. We will add him to our spreadsheet. Again, link in the show notes, also pinned to our Twitter and Blue Sky profiles as well. We will be back tomorrow to talk the results of game 82 and ask the question, now what, for the Philadelphia Flyers. And as a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you have ideas about what the Flyers should do next, let us know. Ask us what we think about them via any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. It's every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale and find Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.